Donald Trump's nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia was announced with great fanfare, but has since become subject to a swirl of controversy, recriminations, and pointed questions about who exactly benefits from this deal and what exactly is in it. Forbes reported today that Donald Trump's business pursued a development deal with Saudi Arabia's government at the same time that Donald Trump was conducting nuclear discussions. The Trump Organization has reaped millions of dollars from Saudi businesses with deep ties to the government of Saudi Arabia since Donald Trump's first presidency. Though the White House insists that Trump and his family have no conflicts of interest, Donald Trump's politics has always been transactional, and this deal is among the most brazen in a long line. To Trump, the deal equates to millions of dollars to add to his billions of dollars. But for Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world, nuclear energy is a fraught and finicky political issue. Someone must have finally told the president that, because today Trump added a last-minute condition to the agreement via a post on social media. The kingdom must sign the Abraham Accords agreement, which would normalize relations with Israel. Except that Saudi Arabia has refused to do that unless Israel establishes a clear pathway for Palestinian statehood. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that as long as he's in charge of Israel, there will never be a Palestinian state, which amounts to something of a diplomatic pretzel. Another problem, the Secretary of Energy of the United States has already approved the agreement. The White House press secretary was asked to clarify Trump's last-minute addition today.
Some deals aren't just about business. They're about the future of global stability. Donald Trump's proposed Saudi nuclear agreement is now facing intense scrutiny after reports of potential conflicts of interest and a last-minute demand that Saudi Arabia normalize relations with Israel. Critics, including Mehdi Hasan, argue that this could reshape the politics of the Middle East while putting even more pressure on an already volatile region. Stay with me until the end, because the bigger issue isn't just this deal. It's what it could mean for diplomacy, accountability, and America's role in the world. And if you believe progress and truth deserve a louder voice, subscribe and join our community today.
With regards to the Saudi nuclear deal, why was that condition not mentioned yesterday when the Energy Secretary announced it?
Well, look, the president is always the final deal maker, as you know, and this is something that he has mentioned on numerous occasions going back. I can provide you with those statements, and he has said if they don't join the Abraham Accords, the deal is off. So we'll continue to have those conversations with our Saudi counterparts moving forward.
That was a lot of words that didn't add up to an answer. Joining me now is Mehdi Hasan. He's the founder and editor-in-chief of Zateo, an independent news organization with more than 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Mehdi's an old friend and colleague of mine. However, Mehdi, because I see all your stuff on the internet, you actually know more about nuclear stuff and nuclear non-proliferation and treaties and who's got weapons and who doesn't have weapons and who abides by rules and who doesn't than pretty much anyone I know. So can you please make some sense of this deal with Saudi Arabia for me?
Well, the Saudis have wanted nuclear energy for a while, Ali, as do a lot of countries in the Middle East. And the position of the U.S. always was, we can't let this happen because it might become an arms race. The worry about nuclear proliferation in the Middle East was always that, proliferation. If one country gets it, does everyone else try and get it? And you did a masterful attempt in your introduction at the top of the show of pointing out atoms for peace. And Eisenhower, the Americans were trying to help other countries have civil nuclear programs, including Iran back in the day. The Israelis, which I'm sure we'll talk about, obviously did their own program in secret, which turned into a nuclear weapons program. Meanwhile, Iran never got nuclear weapons, but we were always concerned they would. And the Saudis said if Iran gets nuclear weapons, we're going to get weapons. And yet Donald Trump now says they can have civil nuclear power, which is worrying a lot of Democrats, at least. It's all over the place. And of course, as you've also pointed out, in the last couple of days, they've gone from signing a nuclear deal with the Saudis on Wednesday. Our energy secretary signed a deal with their energy minister. And then on Thursday, Donald Trump has signed the Abraham Accords. For those who are not aware, the Abraham Accords involve Israel, the United States, Morocco, Bahrain, Sudan, and the UAE. Countries that are not actually at war with each other. It doesn't involve the Palestinians. It doesn't involve Iran. It doesn't involve the key players. And now he's saying the Saudis should join on to that. And the Saudis under MBS have been very consistent that we will normalize relations with Israel when there's a Palestinian state, or at least a pathway to a Palestinian state. One last point, Ali, importantly, on the whole nuclear relations and the statehood relations. The Saudis put a peace proposal on the table in 2002. It's been 24 years since the Saudi government issued the Arab Peace Plan, full normalization with Israel, a two-state solution. The Israelis turned it down. Even the Iranians indirectly supported that Arab peace plan. The Israelis, under every prime minister, Netanyahu, Sharon, they turned it down.
So the problem that Donald Trump puts this addendum that you need to join the Abraham Accords, which Carolyn Levitt did a terrible job of explaining. Like, nobody can give us any clarity as to how this addendum just sort of showed up. But the Saudis, even if they wanted to do that, and maybe they want their nuclear power program so much that they might be prepared to hint that they'll sign on to the Abraham Accords, these countries, even these authoritarian countries in the Middle East, have a problem with their own street. In other words, if they make this deal, they'll have domestic problems from people who say, how can you make a deal? You've said that your red line is Palestinian statehood, but you actually want nuclear power and trade with Israel more than you want that.
I think the silence of Arab countries over the last few years, as Israel has perpetrated a genocide in Gaza, has already frustrated people across the region. People have already been upset with their own governments not doing anything to protect the Palestinians. I know people across the Middle East were annoyed that Arab governments were willing to protect Israel from Iran, but not Palestinians from Israel. I think this would just, yes, it would boil over. I think this would be even worse. You're not just not protecting the Palestinians from a genocide, you're actually abandoning them forever. One cause that the Arabs always said they cared about, apparently, I mean, we've never really trusted authoritarian Arab government. But yes, even a ruler like MBS, who's been, very brutal, ruthless in his crackdown on domestic opposition, on rivals, even he would face some fury if he said, you know what, the Saudis are going to go, their, decades-long commitment to this. By the way, Ali, I'm sure you've seen Saudi officials are saying, we have no plans to join this deal right now. We are consistent in our position. And a social media post from the president does not trump a signed diplomatic agreement. We shall see.
Mehdi, let's just talk about what actually happens now as a result of this thing, because with any deal that Trump gets involved in, there's always something else going on, right? This Forbes reporting that there was a deal comes as no surprise to anyone at all. But we do know that the Saudis are involved with Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner was trying to raise more money in the Middle East.
Yes.
It was muddy in the beginning. It got much more muddier when the war with Iran starts. And now all of a sudden, it made this whole idea that foreign dignitaries were staying at the Trump Hotel back in Trump's first administration downright quaint. These guys are getting a nuclear deal out of this.
Quaint, you put the finger on it, Ali. That was first-term corruption and conflict of interest was nothing compared to second-term. Jared Kushner left the White House in 2020 and went and started an investment fund that took $2 billion from the Saudis. He's made around $100 million in fees already, on top of that $2 billion investment that he's managing for the future. And then he becomes a top foreign policy negotiator for the Trump administration as a private citizen, unvetted by the Senate, to go talk to the Iranians. And the Iranians weren't happy with him or Witkoff. They've made that very clear. They wanted to deal with J.D. Vance instead. So there's so many conflicts of interest. The Saudi government has sponsored golf tournaments that have taken place at Donald Trump properties. The corruption is massive. By the way, Ali, another point here, Brookfield Asset Management owns 51% of a company called Westinghouse, which is going to build these nuclear facilities for the Saudis. And guess what Brookfield Asset Management did in 2018? They bailed out Jared and Charles Kushner's distressed property deal in New York. So there's all sorts of issues for the Democrats to investigate if they win back the House in November. I think they should call Jared Kushner first to testify before Don and Eric.
I will ask you one thing, because I know you ask a lot of people this. There is a question about who should decide who gets to have a nuclear energy program for their energy usage. I understand that there's a continuum between nuclear energy and nuclear weaponry, but there is a problem. A whole lot of countries, particularly in the global south, say, how come a handful of you get to decide who gets nuclear power?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we should remind viewers at home, there is a country in the Middle East whose name begins with I that has not just nuclear power, but nuclear weapons. It's not Iran. The U.S. Intelligence Committee's position was that Iran was not building nuclear weapons. I interviewed Senator Mark Warner, vice chair of the Intel Committee this week. He said there was no imminent nuclear threat from Iran. Meanwhile, there is a country in the Middle East which has nuclear weapons, Israel. It doesn't allow inspectors in. It's not a signatory to the IAEA. It built this nuclear program in secret, Ali. JFK, President Kennedy, was very upset with the Israelis that they lied to him and deceived him and built this secret nuclear weapons program. And JFK was worried that this Israeli nuclear weapons program would lead to proliferation. It would prompt other countries to try and get weapons. And here we are today, Israel having bombed 7 countries in the Middle East last year, and a lot of Middle East governments thinking, well, hold on, North Korea didn't get attacked when they have nukes. Pakistan doesn't get attacked when they have nukes. Maybe we need to get nukes. So the incentives are all wrong. People who actually care about nuclear disarmament want everyone to disarm.
When I look at this story, I don't just see another foreign policy headline. I see why transparency and accountability matter. Nuclear cooperation, regional diplomacy, and peace agreements are issues with consequences that can last for generations. That's why questions about conflicts of interest, congressional oversight, and long-term stability deserve serious public discussion. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Because real leadership isn't about headlines. It's about earning public trust through accountability, transparency, and responsible decision-making. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you in the next video.